Good morning and welcome to the Black USA News Morning Show. My name is Donnie Glover. I hope that you are well. Beautiful day in the neighborhood. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if I've ever shared this with you, but I'm a huge lover of music. I've been playing the piano actually since I was about 7 years old. And while I started off learning classical music, Mozart, Beethoven, Chopin, I came to love jazz, African American classical music. And the man who taught me about African American classical music, besides my daddy, is the one and only Mr. Gary Ellerbe. He's the king of jazz. He's our jazz aficionado. He has been educating us for quite a long time. Good morning, Mr. Gary Ellerbe.
Good morning, Dr. Glover. How you doing, sir?
Man, I'm just a squirrel in the world trying to get an acorn. Praise the Lord. Dr. Ellerbe, I got to tell you, did you know Tyrone Tate-Morn?
Yeah.
Well, we are now, this interview
Mm-hmm.
is in the metaverse. The metaverse is when you put on those Oculus virtual reality goggles.
Okay.
Yeah, so
I
we,
have
we
I have a legacy then.
yes, you are now in the metaverse, and in time to come, people will be watching this interview way down in the future.
Okay. I
But
wasn't ready for this video part, but I'm here.
you are. So here's my question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Give me 5 top jazz musicians that every African American ought to know.
Louis Armstrong, Miles Davis. I named those two first because those are the two that basically had the biggest impact on the music. Jazz started with pops, and Miles kept changing it. Miles changed the music 3, 4 times in his lifetime. Now, let's see. Who else would I not leave off my list? I can't leave Duke Ellington off. And if you study Duke Ellington, you're going to run into Count Basie.
Would that be the era of orchestras, black orchestras?
Yes, that would cover that area too, because everybody I named played with an orchestra at one time or another.
You know what's fascinating, especially as we watch this whole new genre unfold and evolve, back in the early 80s, I think Biggie Small may have put it best. No one thought that hip hop would take it this far. But I imagine a similar thing may have been said with jazz.
Oh, they said that about Miles Davis on several occasions. Duke Ellington said the first thing I did was learn all the rules and then proceed to break every last one of them. I've learned something about critics over the years. Critics criticize. That's pretty much all they qualified to do. Um, Somebody else in the jazz world that I can't ignore or leave out would be Billie Holiday, because along with Louis Armstrong, she was the most influential singer that the world has ever seen, much less jazz.
Billie Holiday more so than Ella Fitzgerald or Sarah Vaughan.
Yeah, for me, yeah. They were all influenced by Billy. Billy was there first.
Now, what about that drummer from Baltimore with scoliosis?
I was just looking at Mr. Webb's picture. Somebody just sent me a picture of Chick Webb and his orchestra.
Now, I met a young man since our last interview you named Ron Owens, or let's say I've reconnected, and I believe that's his name. And Ronald is interested in preserving Chick Webb Recreation Center.
It's funny. In the 50s, I was living in West Baltimore over on Edmonton Avenue across from Evergreen Square, the place where the James Mosier Little League used to hang out and practice. My Aunt Ruth moved from Edmonton Avenue and Fulton Street
Fulton Avenue.
over to the Latrobe homes. She lived over in Webb Court.
East Side.
And we used to go over to the East Side on weekends. And we would go to Chick Webb Center. Me and my cousin Victor and Rodney Crump would go to Chick Webb Center. That's where we would go swimming at. On the west side, it was the Y. Chick Webb was the one who put the drums in the spotlight. He did things with drums that nobody else did. They used to talk about how Benny Goodman was the king of swing. King of swing was Chick Webb. And all you got to do is ask anybody that ever went to, hang out, or performed at the Savoy Ballroom in Harlem. Chick Webb was the king, period. They used to have real battles of the bands. Chick Webb's put everybody in second place. Even said it, and even Duke Ellington said it.
Now, I'm going to digress a bit, and I'm going to shift gears just to see if you're fully awake.
Okay.
Who were the Harlem Wrens?
The Harlem Renaissance basketball team. They was bad, man. They were bad. Absolutely.
Did you ever see him? Or was that before you?
That was before me, but I did go to the Renaissance Lounge in Harlem while I lived there. I got to go there. I got to go to Savoy. I got to go to Roy Campanella's place.
The baseball player.
Yeah. I got to go to Jack Dempsey's restaurant. I got to sit down with Jack Dempsey. One time I was in there, Muhammad Ali came in and was talking to Jack. Once the Say Hey Kid, Willie Mays, stopped in. You could go to Jack Dempsey's and he'd be sitting at the table in the window, welcoming you to come on in and hang out. And he didn't care if you brought nothing to eat or not.
The boxer.
Yep. Yeah, New York was an eye-opener for me, man. I got introduced to so much and so many different cultures all at once.
It's different than Baltimore, you would say?
It was definitely different in Baltimore because, number one, it's faster. Things come to New York right off of the boat. While they had to take a little slower route to get to Baltimore with everything but the music. Baltimore was a test ground for music all the way up through the 70s. They would try it here. If it made it in Baltimore, then you got to go to New York.
So they said if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. But I've heard that about New York and Baltimore. My daddy would say it about Baltimore. My dad said if you make it in Baltimore, you can make it anywhere. Baltimore
is little New York. Everything that gets to New York gets to Baltimore one way or another. Baltimore, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., Chicago, and Detroit. That was pretty much the Chitlin circuit. After the great migration, black migration from the South, those cities that I named, those were the key places where black people migrated to because of the jobs that they were able to get there.
So look, since I last saw you, my book has come out, I Am Black Wall Street. I Am Black Wall Street.
Excellent. Excellent. Congratulations.
I talk about how those people got to Oklahoma. They came by way of Florida. And then the second wave came by way of Kansas.
Yeah.
But as we talk about Black Wall Street, you mentioned Chicago. Chicago had their own little Black Wall Street, if I'm not mistaken, called Bronzeville.
I read about that briefly too, yes.
And in Detroit, they had what is known as Black Bottom.
And
so as you mentioned the Chitlin circuit, that the Chitlin circuit was essentially a map of our Black Wall Streets around the country.
Exactly.
Because Black Wall Street wasn't just in Tulsa. Wherever Black people were, there was some type of Black Wall Street. What was it here in Baltimore?
Pennsylvania Avenue.
That's what everybody say.
that was the hub of Black Baltimore, Pennsylvania Avenue. It was a straight line and everybody could easily get there.
P.M. Smith said last week, and I will never ever forget this. He said East Baltimore is blue collar. He was preaching a sermon, actually a homegoing service for Julius Henson's sister. And he said, the difference between East Baltimore is historically blue collar. The men quite often worked in the plants, worked on the waterfront, worked in the factories. But then he says something that I wasn't expecting to hear. He said West Baltimore was white collar.
I can see how he would get to that to a degree, but you had people in West Baltimore who were blue collar too. I always figured all of Baltimore was a blue collar town, and it was a nickel and dime town, and it was a blues town. Nickel and dime because we always wanted or expected change back from our dollar. Blues town because Baltimore has always been in love with the blues. Flip Wilson did a bit one day as Geraldine, and he was being interviewed. I think it was David Frost, and David Frost said, "Well, isn't it true that the Negro, which we were called at that time, gave the blues to America?" And Flip, as Geraldine, said, "Nah, honey, you got that wrong. America gave the blues to the Negro." People don't realize the significance of blues and gospel. Blues and gospel gave birth to jazz.
Well, I'm getting ready to hit you. I'm getting ready to come with
Jazz
another
gave birth.
curveball.
Wait a minute. Jazz gave birth to every kind of music that came after it was created. Everything.
Okay. Sister Rosetta.
Sister Rosetta Tharpe was a bad guitarist and a vocalist. She got to hang with she ran with the big boys, the big dogs. She ran with Willie the Lion Smith, Duke Ellington, Rex Stewart, and all of them.
Was she the founder of rock and roll?
Some people say that. I got to read a little more. I've always considered Louis Jordan and Cab Calloway the godfathers of rock and roll, or the godfathers of rhythm and blues. From my perspective, rock and roll didn't come in existence until so-called white boys started imitating black musicians.
And that's where the cover artist thing comes about.
Yeah. They would make a record with a black group singing, but then they'd put a picture of a white group on the cover. Miles got fed up with that when they did it with him. That's why he started demanding that, well, my wife's pictures are going to be on my album. And the first one was Frances Taylor. The next one was Cicely Tyson.
Tell me about a Miles Davis, Cicely Tyson matrimonial scenario. These were two giants in their own rights. I mean, you look at what Cicely Tyson did in her last 15 years. Just her presence alone commanded respect, dignity, character. I'll never forget Miss Jane Pittman. She always gonna be all right with me. Ever since I saw Miss Jane Pittman and she did that water fountain scene.
Yep.
Oh my. But Miles, I haven't met a musician yet who can't mention Miles Davis. Even Wynton Marsalis gave him props in his own way, if you ask me.
You remember, see, you mentioned Miss Jane Pittman, and you reminded me of a Howard Rollins program, In the Heat of the Night. They did an episode where they featured a lady pretty much playing the same character as Mrs. Jane Pittman. Only her thing was she was determined to go in and vote, and they went to push her down. The voting, the place where you had to register, you had to go up the side of the building, up the side of a long flight of stairs, and the guy tried to push her down the steps. And in the end of the movie, the thing was she got to walk through the square and drink from the white only water fountain.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. Now, we talking about Archie Bunker. Was it Carl O'Connor?
Carl O'Connor.
Him and Diane Carroll, were they an item?
Not Diane Carroll, Denise Nichols.
Denise Nichols, the black lady in the movie, were they an item?
Only in the movie, only in the TV show, as I know.
Okay.
I never got into people's private lives. It wasn't none of my business.
Okay, Connor, you celebrities. I mean, but
that's where the gossip and the critics come in. See.
But in her book, she paid homage to Carl O'Connor, if I'm not mistaken. And this is totally different than the character Archie Bunker.
Oh, he was far from. He acted his butt off in Archie Bunker. It was just like the Jeffersons, just like Good Time. It was a teaching moment. They literally showed bigots just how stupid they looked.
Touche.
That's what it was about. Norman Lear was a genius. He was literally a genius. And I put Dr. William H. Cosby in that same boat. You look at the Cosby Show, you look at a different world. He brought our history front and center with the music, with the teaching, with the lessons that the kids had to learn about Martin Luther King and why that march on Washington was necessary. Bill Cosby got in trouble because he was trying to buy NBC. They told him no. The first warning shot was his son being murdered on the highway. That was a warning. Bill Cosby, Sidney Poitier, and Bill Cosby, Sidney Poitier, Miles Davis, Harry Belafonte. They were four of the top stars in America, period. They didn't have to rape anybody. They were lining up to give it to them, demanding that you come on and share some of that loving with me.
Mr. Guy, the only thing that got me about the Bill Cosby trial was that them women were ugly. And his wife is drop dead gorgeous. Now I'm just trying to understand what in the hell happened.
And more intelligent than he was.
Yeah.
She was as smart as he was. It's kind of like the people that are anti-abortion, Donnie. If you look at the women, they're somebody you wouldn't want to have sex with in the first damn place.
I don't know that black people understand this whole abortion thing. We think it's about one thing. We think it's about one thing.
White women had abortion credit cards in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah, but
the whole
abortion want to stop abortion because they're looking at the numbers. They're looking at the browning of America. Why don't you set that down? Can you set that down somewhere? You about to break out in the sweat.
Nah, I like playing with my beard. One of the things my mother enjoyed later in her life was just sitting there rubbing my beard and talking to me. You know, that's I guess it's part of my nervous system.
So where are we today with jazz? I gotta tell you, I don't know if you've been down to Terra Cafe, but on Monday nights they got a jazz session down there.
They moved it.
World.
They moved it.
They did.
They moved it from the Terra Cafe ran into a problem with their neighbors when after COVID they started having things out back. So now the Clarence Ward and Aaron Hill and them are up at the old Jarman Pontiac building on 29th Street
And
and in
Howard
Remington.
and Remington.
29th Street in Remington. That used to be Jarman Pontiac, JAR
It was a
Pontiac.
garage. Then they turned it into a restaurant, right?
Yeah, now it's a restaurant, a variety of restaurants from what I understand. I haven't been there yet because I still don't go out when the temperature is below my age.
So look, I want to go back to New York, Baltimore. I read about this mayor in Baltimore in the early 1900s, turn of the 20th century. His name was J. Barry Mahou. He is known as the father of segregation. You may not know his name, but I bet you know McMecken Street. And McMecken Street is named after George McMecken. And he and his cousin, Ashby Hawkins, were two black lawyers. And they challenged this father of segregation. So it's a reminder, just like there were black Wall Streets everywhere, just like black people, not all black people tolerated slavery and fought back. The same thing with segregation. Was New York as segregated as Baltimore?
Yeah, in places.
I remember the Crown Heights story in Brooklyn.
There were certain places where you literally weren't welcome. I mean, sundown towns are all across America, man. You know, sundown town. Remember they had this big fire in this place called Paradise, California, a couple years ago?
Vaguely.
That was a sundown town, brother. Don't get caught there after sundown. Shoot, it used to be like that over here by Mervo.
And nature took it out.
Nature took it out.
You know, there are those black people that believe when them tornadoes go through the Midwest, it's the ancestors off the coast of Africa coming to pay a visit.
Looking for her children. Horace Silver wrote a song about it. Cape Verde Blues.
Cape Verde Blues. That's the little island off the coast of North Africa.
Mm-hmm. Is it North Africa or South Africa? I thought it was southwest.
Really? I always thought it was northwest. Let me look. That's the beauty of Google. Cape Verde.
According to Wikipedia,
no, I need a map. Got to travel across the world. We're doing some geography lessons here, folks. Well, we both kind of wrong. It's right. Well, West Africa, off the coast of West Africa, not far from. The nearest country would be. Is it Western Sierra? Morocco, going towards Portugal, Spain. That general vicinity. So you say New York was as segregated?
Yeah, there was parts of New York you couldn't go to. They weren't too happy to see us in Little Italy either in New York.
How you dealing with the COVID, Mr. Guy?
Staying away from known liars, avoiding big crowds, not congregating indoors with a bunch of strangers or people I even know.
Does that include Keystone, one of your favorite spots?
That includes Keystone.
You don't go?
I haven't been in a couple of months because they got this new strain out there now. The reason I was comfortable going to the Keystone was because they had the money to install a new air filter purification system. Rest of the clubs that I went to didn't have that kind of budget. Keystone put up some petitions. They took out half the tables and they spread people out a bit. So after you're in there about 20, 25 minutes, the purification system has worked and cleared the air again. So then if I felt comfortable taking my mask off and having a beverage. And let's face it, I'm not going to a jazz show and not having a beverage. That just they go to that it's this and that. It's a set.
Sound like you just made a lyric to a song. It's this and that and like this and okay. So where are we? You know, we haven't had you on since, you know, a whole lot has happened, including January 6th, a year ago. What did you think when you saw them cats climbing, scaling the walls of the Capitol, and the steps was just around the corner?
It gave the world a chance to see the America I've always known. If nobody isn't punished severely for that, it serves as a dress rehearsal.
Catherine Pugh comes on today.
Huh?
Catherine Pugh comes on today.
Yeah, I heard the press was already camped out last night. Leave the lady alone. She paid her price.
Now what we're going to do about the University of Maryland, them people on the board, you think she going to drop dime on them people? Because somebody else supposed to be catching some charges, wouldn't you think?
If she didn't do it already, I don't believe she will, bruh. I don't believe she will. Too much money at stake in this games. I see now where Micah is trying to expand on the west side.
Senator Hayes has mentioned that to me. And so you got Coppin up there at Warwick, and you got Micah down there at Mount Royal. And the question is that land in between. And I think David Murphy owns some of that property at what, Northern Park?
Good.
I said David Murphy. David Bramble, Joy Bramble's son, Joy and Peter Bramble's son.
Oh, okay. Well,
he's a big-time developer, according to the streets.
You know, I'd love to see Coppin expand even more. I'm impressed with how much they have expanded. And believe it or not, I give a lot of that credit to not only Winky and Peaches Camper, but believe it or not, Robert Ehrlich.
Oh my God.
And I'm not a Robert Ehrlich fan by no stretch of the imagination.
Thank you for telling the truth. Because he did.
He certainly did.
Democrats was driving past Coppin for decades. Don't make me call names. And Coppin ain't getting nothing.
Nothing. Not a thing. Yeah, Robert Ehrlich goes down in my book as he did something good, but keep in mind, nobody is useless. Even a broken clock is right twice a day.
I would like to see our Democrats hold Democratic governors to the same level of scrutiny and criticism that they give Hogan.
I'd like to see our people hold Democrats to the same level that they want to hold Republicans, period. I say vote blue all the way, then keep paying attention. And if they don't do what they're supposed to do, they don't get but one term, and you vote them out and send another Democrat in there and said, all right, have you learned anything from how quickly we got him out of here? They know the solutions to these problems.
Have you ever seen Baltimore like this before?
With this amount of gunplay, no. But Baltimore has always been a crooked town politically.
But it's always black people going to jail, but black people don't own nothing. That's the part that gets me. Maybe we don't need to go into politics. Maybe we need to go at it from a different angle, because every time we get near the top, if you don't have white insurance coverage, I mean, that's what it looked like to me. You need a white card. You need some white insurance. If you ain't got no white players on your team, then they're going to poison your well. I mean, look at Nick. His well is poisoned if he should choose to run for mayor.
I've been watching Fox News locally, and they're acting like the only news in America worth talking about is Marilyn Mosby's problem.
Not Donald Trump, Marilyn Mosby. Donald Trump.
And I'm trying to figure out, wait a minute. You got a little lady in a little town with less than 1 million people in it versus the president of the United States with 330 million people that he's robbing. You're not supposed to be worried about what she's doing. Your focus should be on getting this master crime boss and all of his cahoots.
Well, see, that's the denial that white America typically runs into, don't you think? I mean, it's easy to point the finger. That's with any people. It's easy to point the finger at your neighbor, but it's three coming back at you. Now, this gets me. They came up with hundreds of millions of dollars to find weaponry for the Ukraine. Can somebody spend some money on these troglodytes I got creeping through the streets of Sandtown all hours of the night, breaking into vacant buildings, starting fires? I mean, there's a time when the police will pull up non-community residents right away. What are you doing here?
Yeah, they talking about they want frisk and stop and frisk. No, I don't want that because I know who the target of that's going to be. Those abandoned buildings in Baltimore show you how crooked and corrupt Baltimore has been, because if those buildings had been owned by black people,
oh, they'd be locked up.
Exactly.
Right now.
I had a roof on my front porch that was
charged them with murder too. Fox said they'd have charged them black.
I had a roof on my front porch that was in danger of falling. I couldn't get any financial assistance from my city or my state to help me remove it. Never mind repair it or replace it. Just help me pay to take it down. They wouldn't do that, but they sent an inspector by here to tell me how I needed to have it taken care of.
Now, they don't send inspectors by on these landlords who have neglected properties that are 10, 15, and 20 years old. Why does this continue to carry on? Why does this continue to linger?
Because the owners of them buildings are contributing to the campaign funds of these various candidates.
Then all of them should go to jail. If you're getting Maryland over something like applying for some COVID money, then what about these trifling landlords? And then how many times has the city sent out the police, the fire department, DPW, the Department of Housing and Community Development to one property?
They sent them out to our houses for not paying the damn water bill. They'll take your house.
But a slumlord can own property next door to me for 20 years, cause fires, break-ins, police man hours, fire department man and woman hours.
They got us distracted, bruh.
Look, have you been to the harbor lately? Oh, nope. My God. The Pratt Street, the whole Light Street, Pratt Street Pavilion, I don't see nobody over there. I see people on the north side of Pratt Street over there at that burger spot, Shake Shack, Chipotle's, Marshall's, Capitol Grill. They cleaning up IHOP. They got an IHOP down there on Marketplace and Pratt. But the harbor around the water, ain't nobody going over there. So will they have to drop the rent? Because I remember the lady from Shuckers. I'll never forget doing a story on her 15 years ago. She was paying $13,000 a month rent. Guess what? They ain't going to get no $13,000 a month out of nobody now.
You been down on Key Highway and see how much that real estate costs?
Ain't nobody buying it.
But now they putting bike paths in everywhere. Have you came up Calvert Street?
I saw the bike paths.
See all those all those houses they have redone down there?
Downtown Calvert Street?
Yep.
I don't want to live downtown. You know why I don't want to live downtown?
Why?
There are no kids. Kids bring a certain life to a community.
Mm-hmm.
There's no kids. There's no laughter. There's no, hey, cut all that noise. Or none of that. It's just adults.
I don't want to live downtown because I like having dirt around me.
You like elbow room, huh?
Yeah, I like elbow room. I like having dirt, grass, trees, and I don't want one of them perfect green lawns with no dandelions. I want the dandelions too. I had a man who used to make me go with him collect dandelions, and we make dandelion wine. We get blasted for a month. That was some good stuff.
I didn't know you knew about moonshine and Mr. Guy.
Yeah, it was I got a history, bro. What can I say?
Mr. Guy, any thoughts on our first responders? New York City, the second cop died yesterday answering a domestic violence call this past weekend. Firefighters, 3 of them, God rest their souls, got killed here in Baltimore in the vacant. Any thoughts on our first responders? And I'm particularly sensitive to the fire department because they help anybody. There's no kind of thing. Are they black? They white? Are they Christian? They Muslim? They Jew?
They see a burning building, they running in it. They see a burning
with
building.
With no gun.
And then you got cowards doing a riot that want to shoot at the fire department. Now, come on, how you can't get any stupider. I'm sorry, but it is what if you walk like a duck, quack like a duck, it's a duck, and if you call it anything but a duck, you just as stupid as the cotton picking duck. I love first responders. I have a brother-in-law who is a lieutenant in the fire department, and he's on the hazmat team. If there's any hazmat calls, he going, period. I don't care where it is. His wife was worked on an ambulance. One of his daughters drove an ambulance over in Cambridge, Maryland. She spent more time coming across the Bay Bridge going to the University of Maryland with patients. She might come across the bridge 3 times in one day. But it takes a special kind of person, first of all, to work with the public, because the public can be very demanding while at the same time not being very knowledgeable. It takes a special kind of person to be willing to risk their life to save somebody they don't know. This COVID has been really hard on first line workers because they don't have an option of saying no.
Man, big ups to our nurses and doctors and hospital
Absolutely,
personnel.
man. Absolutely.
Working in an environment where death is all around you.
Now imagine doing that for a group of people that don't like you because of the color of their skin, so they want to call you names and insult you the whole time you trying to save their life. This guy, this so-called white man, a Republican, the one that got shot during the Republicans' baseball practice.
Yeah.
His life was saved by a black lesbian. He didn't change his opinion not one bit after she saved his damn life.
That's called ungrateful people. And karma is real. See, that's one thing that a lot of people miss. We forget about the dirt we did to somebody else. We never forget the dirt that was done to us.
Yep.
But there's a great timekeeper. There's a great scorekeeper that knows everything you and I have ever done. And karma has a way of coming back around. So that white man politician you're talking about, he might mess around and have a black lesbian granddaughter.
He almost got killed in the January 6th. He was there. He ran for cover.
He ran like a little girl. I want to see like a little girl.
Back in the day, back in the day, we called them punk A mofos. They still punk A mofos. They want to act like January 6th didn't happen.
That was a real coward move. First of all, now I will tell you one thing I noticed about the East Side and the West Side. One major difference.
What's that?
There's a code in East Baltimore. When I moved to West Baltimore, there's no code.
I had a code in West Baltimore where I was.
Some people got a code, but a lot of these guys, I never saw people getting banked before until I came to West Baltimore. Fighting it up.
I saw him getting banked in East Baltimore. Remember, I was over at the Latrobe House. I saw a few people get yoked.
But they were outsiders, guaranteed.
Yeah, they didn't. Yeah, East Side and West Side didn't necessarily like each other. You're right.
Oh, I love both sides of town, and I got great memories in both sides of town. 1968, I remember the National Guard coming up North Avenue in tanks.
I was in New York by then, but I saw them on Lenox Avenue and 7th Avenue in Harlem.
Did you go to any baseball games in New York?
I went to Yankee Stadium and Shea Stadium all the time. I lived not too far from Yankee Stadium.
They let Big Papi in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, but they wouldn't let Barry Bonds in.
No.
They still haven't let Pete Rose in.
And they not. He gambled. He gambled on the game.
So what?
Got caught.
So what?
Sends a message. The gambling on your game is okay. And it's not.
But
I love Pete Rose.
They celebrated Robert Lee, didn't they?
I don't.
But he was a traitor to his country.
He was a traitor. Just like those J6 people. All of them. Donald Trump is a traitor. And a sore
Donald Trump is just a crime boss and a perfect example of what a person develops into when they are not corrected as a child and held accountable for anything they do.
When he went and got in an argument with that 13-year-old little girl that was fighting for fighting for the environment, I want to say Greta. He went messing with that little girl. That shows you the type of person that he is.
Yeah, he a big bully.
Yeah.
He a big bully. I got a big bank account. I can do whatever I want, and you better not say nothing about it. And then when you call him on it, what's he do? He gets a bunch of flunky lawyers and try to drive up the cost for you to defend yourself and make it impossible.
His day will come. Every dog has his day. Just like Jeffrey Epstein. Hey, you see how that thing had ripple effects? Now the lady,
I don't think he committed suicide either.
Of course not. No more than Bob Clay. But that lady, she drastic, and then the prince was the Duke. He lost his ranking. You know, these are important things to people who live in that world.
Yeah, they're called sacrificial lambs. We'll sacrifice these little peons so that we can get what we want. Hell, everybody. Hugh Hefner was one of the biggest pimps in the world. But he had the Playboy Club, and everybody liked the Playboy Club. I went to the Playboy Club. I had a Playboy Club key, too. I even had a bunny or two. But that's what it was all about. It was all about sex.
Oh, my. This is a family-oriented show, Mr. Ellerbe.
I was clean. I'm sorry.
What's
Sex is only dirty if you do it right. Okay, moving on.
so, Mr. Ellerbe, what do we want to see in this new year, 2022?
I want to see people spending more time with these young people, and I want to see the young people spending more time with the old folks. That's the only way you're going to straighten this stuff out is the two generations got to get together, and the older generations got to say, look, this is what we went through. This is what we did to get out of it. These young people using guns to solve their problems.
Because their
That's
daddy
showing
quite
what
often,
they.
their
That's
daddy's
showing what
locked
they
up. They
learned
ain't
from.
never learned how to fight.
That's showing what they learned. No, that's showing what they learned from America. How does America solve her problems around the world? She gets the biggest guns.
Yeah, but
The
it's a
kids ain't
different
doing nothing but
it's
the
a
same
different
thing.
mentality in these parents today. There was a code when we grew up. Saturday, you could not go outside unless you did what?
Housework, clean the house.
I don't think that's been. And then you got celebrities, you got black celebrities that use their celebrity platforms to talk about things that are secondary and tertiary at best to our existence as a people. I don't care what sex your child is. That's your
I
business.
don't care what sex you are.
Don't make it my business because that's
Exactly.
your business. But America wants to make that everybody's business. Mind your damn business.
That's another distraction. That's all it is. It serves the purpose. It distracts it and takes their attention away from what they should be talking about,
We
which is
should be
what they
talking
don't
about
want you talking about.
education and getting these young people caught up since learning has slowed down. And would you
You
send
know
your
how
child?
Baltimore can solve this abandoned building problem? Tear the damn building down and give the last registered owner the bill for it. And what that's going to do? That's going to give you some land. Well, if we got to tear your building down, your building now belongs to the city. And since the city didn't have to pay anything to get it, they now can disperse build that land out to citizens of Baltimore, and they can build new homes. That's why you ought to put these trade skills back in the schools. That's an
Nobody,
economic opportunity. Teach
nobody
these kids
mentioned
how to do
Carver.
carpentry.
Nope,
Teach them how to
nobody
do
mentioned
plumbing.
Carver and Mervo. We're the students from Carver and Mervo. You mean to tell me they can't flip a house?
Donnie, it's just like Baltimore City Police Department. Citizens of Baltimore are paying for police to go to school. What are they studying in school that they're still not qualified to lead the Baltimore City Police Department? We still got to get somebody from New York to run our police. Well, what are they studying in school that we're paying for? And if they can't do the job, if they can't get job enhancement out of it, why are we paying for it? They going to school to study taxes? I ain't paying you to be no tax consultant. These young people out here in this drug trade, that's black economics, plain and simple. They're using that money for a variety of reasons, including paying rent and taking care of their kids. They got violent with it. Why? For the same reason that white people got violent during Prohibition. How did they stop the violence in Prohibition? They legalized the damn alcohol. Kurt Schmoke told them to do the same thing with drugs. You take the profitability out of it. There's no more battling over street corners. Well, that's where your violence comes from.
Mr. Gary, we got to wrap this up. I've been wanting to ask you, who did the song Troglodyte?
Parliament Funkadelic. George
And what is
Clinton
a
in the bar.
troglodyte?
Huh?
What is a troglodyte?
You got to ask George Clinton his definition. I don't know.
He said a caveman. And that's what I got in my alley, eating out the alley, shooting dope, troglodytes.
Well, the original caveman came from the caves in Europe, right?
That's what they say.
And he wasn't friendly with nature, right? because nature was kicking his behind. Well, as a result of that, he stayed in the cave. So what didn't he learn? Well, he didn't learn how to
Unright.
cooperate and get along with nature, and he didn't learn any social skills. So when he got out, what did he do? He took everything he saw. So they have a long history of thievery and murder, don't they? That's why they don't want true history taught in schools. It shows
Stop
how
doing
bad
it.
he are.
Stop doing it then. Stop
He
putting
shows
your knee on George Floyd's neck.
Nah, he can't stop doing that.
Oh,
That's who he is. That's
Only
just
thing a
who he
bully
is.
understand is a brick upside the head. And I know we can't say those type things.
No, we can't, but we can think them.
I won't be bullied.
I won't either.
I got a daughter. I taught her what to do. Taught her about the alley apple. And I said, don't do a full swing. Just tap it.
That's all. I had to give a sister advice on how to stop her husband from going upside her head. I was like, go out back and get you an alley apple and stick it under your side of the bed. And then next time he smacks you, get up, go fix him a nice meal, get him good and full, and then when he lay down, you introduce him to that alley apple. I guarantee you, he won't go upside your head no more.
The worst thing in the world any man could hear is for a woman to say, don't go to sleep.
Right. And I wouldn't eat that meal if I was you.
Mr. Guy, it's always fun catching up with you. Thank you for coming back to this platform. We have shows 7 days a week. I told you we were going to do it. Then when I get a big license, then I can bring you on, let you play all of the jazz music you like, including Billie Holiday. What Pops? You didn't say Pops' last name. Pops who?
There's only one Pops, Jack. Louis Daniel Armstrong.
Okay, that's who you call Pops. Okay.
The little boy from the orphanage.
I saw a beautiful statue of him down there in New Orleans.
They named the airport after him. Meanwhile, in the free and liberal North, Thurgood Marshall still has the share name with BWI. Subliminal message, ain't it?
I'll never forget me telling the people involved in that name change, you could call it KKK International. Give us some of that $3.5 billion expansion. Give us some of them contracts.
Man, I remember when BWI was Friendship Airport. And then it got big time. They made it Friendship International Airport. I used to catch a plane out of New York City, LaGuardia Airport, Eastern Airline Whisper Jet. $35, 35 minutes, I was in Baltimore.
Well, Mr. G, we're going to get up out of here. We got the morning show coming on with William Honolulu. Any final thoughts?
I'm glad to see you doing what you're doing. I'm glad that what you're doing is what you love. And I wish you nothing but the best and more to come.
Shout out to Moreland Avenue. We love you, Mr. Gary.
Peace, bro.
Top of the morning. We'll be back in 2 minutes with the Black USA Morning Show with William Honolulu. My name's Donnie Glover. Have a beautiful day. Good morning, world.